the key to peace of mind is knowing who you are. So Socrates says, the only thing that matters is know thyself.
Mhm.
That doesn't mean to be an egotist, but really know thyself with a big S, capital S-E-L-F. Because your true self is an immortal soul. A lot of the people believe is that we're born and then we die. And that's it. That's not true. In fact, you can't look at anything holistically and see a beginning and end of anything. You take everything recycles, everything is part of a great whole. There's no beginning and there's no end.
Well, welcome everyone to Raising the Consciousness of Humanity. I'm here with Dr. Harvey Kaltsas, and it is my pleasure to be able to interview him today. I think you're going to find this a very, very important topic. We're going to be talking about aging and how we could perhaps slow down or reverse aging, as well as disease prevention, which the two of them kind of go hand in hand. And this person is an expert in this area. I'm going to read his bio. This is something I got off your website today. So since the early 1980s, Dr. Harvey Kaltsas has been recognized internationally as an expert in the field of integrative medicine, acupuncture, and Oriental medicine. After graduating from Amherst College in Amherst, Massachusetts in 1969, Dr. Kaltsas studied Oriental medicine, becoming one of the first graduates of the New England School of Acupuncture. His distinguished career in leadership in alternative and Chinese medicine includes serving as chairman of the Florida Board of Acupuncture, president of both Florida State and American Association of Acupuncture and Oriental Medicine, and the dean and co-founder and faculty member of the East-West College of Natural Medicine in Sarasota, Florida. He is the vice president of the National Guild of Acupuncture and Oriental Medicine. In 1993, Dr. Kaltsas became the first and only acupuncturist ever to testify before the U.S. Senate on reducing healthcare costs and received a special commemoration from the People's Republic of China for outstanding contributions in the field of traditional Chinese medicine. In 1994, he was selected by the Office of Alternative Medicine as a presenter to the National Institutes of Health, and in 1996, he was voted Acupuncturist of the Year by the AAAOM. He's also served as an advisor to the NCCAOM. I know these are big words.
National Council for the Certification of Acupuncture and Oriental
Got
Medicine.
it. And a special consultant to the state of Florida, HRS. What is HRS?
It's Health and Human Services for drug
On
abuse
substance
programs.
abuse. Okay. Wow. So, and there's a little bit more here. I would encourage you to go to his website. You are well educated in this field, and you have several books. I know you've written several books that are also on Amazon.
Right.
So it's my pleasure to introduce you today.
My pleasure to be here, Ron.
Yeah.
I love your videos. I love where your head's at.
Good.
And I love you where your heart is at.
Well, thank you.
Important.
Thank you, Dr. Harvey. I think the biggest thing today is so many people are seeking to, I don't know, become self-empowered, to learn more, and especially around the area of health, because we have seen in the world, even some of our family members who have suffered from one disease or another. And I think there's a lot that's out there that people may not be aware of, that we could maybe share a little bit today and talk about of how somebody can be mindful about their health, because when it comes to aging, everybody wants to get younger, especially when they get to our age. Everybody wants to get younger, and at the same time, people want to know, what do I do when something occurs, and not go into the state of fear, but how do I, what do I do be more mindful of my own health?
Well, rather than talk about what to do, I want to talk about what to be.
Okay.
Because, first there's being, then there's doing, and then there's having the results of what you do. But when it comes to being, you have to ask yourself, what's my purpose for being? If you're clear about your purpose, then you'll organize your health around that purpose.
Nice.
And I know people who are very weak people physically, and they live to be 95 years old because they have a purpose that they've got to take care of the family, they've got to do this, they've got to do that, and they'll live to fill out their purpose, whatever they imagine it to be. And
Yeah.
some people are very strong. They're born dynamically healthy and then turn to drug abuse because they don't have a purpose. They're dispirited. And
Yeah.
I look at the Native American population who were fantastically healthy people.
Yeah.
They had amazing vitality and they get dispirited and they're suffering now.
Sure. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. No, you brought up a good point. I mean, I guess if we are purpose driven, then it also means that innately our physical vessel to help us fulfill that purpose has to kind of coincide with that belief of a strong purpose.
right.
Yeah, to keep us thriving.
And there are many things to do. So when you get the purpose of your life figured out,
Yeah.
it's a lot easier to be healthy. And there are certain things to do to be healthy.
And what would some of those things be?
Well, there's 7 pillars of health, I think, 7 foundations for health. One is the food you eat.
Okay.
And we can talk a lot about what foods are healthy, what foods aren't healthy. But food is important, and there are certain toxins in the food that aren't so healthy for you.
Yep.
I noticed that my patients from Europe are much stronger than my patients from America because they have better food. The soil's not contaminated. There are a lot of benefits to the European way of farming that we don't have here. And I think the soil is richer in some ways too, more minerals.
Do they have the same additives and?
No, they're much stricter. They have a much better. Their version of the Food and Drug Administration is not so politically contaminated.
Okay, so that makes a difference too.
We need a lot more health inspectors.
Yeah.
Who are truly focused on the health of the public.
So, yeah, you brought up a good point.
We spend $800 billion to $1 trillion a year on our Defense Department, and we spend I don't know $2 or $3 billion a year on our FDA. I think we should flip that.
Yeah, that would make a big difference.
I think because you're really focused on what makes for a healthy environment.
Yeah.
I'm going to get off on a tangent here, but the Chinese developed a wonderful agricultural system, and it supported the growth of 1 billion people.
Oh wow!
And but then they decided to industrialize their country, so they moved 600 million people from the farms into cities, and they created a big industrial base. And in the process of creating their industrial base, they started to pollute their environment badly.
Okay.
So 1/3 of all agricultural income in China is derived from the growing and sale of medicinal herbs.
Oh wow!
Which is an amazing statement. 1/3 of all their farm income is from the medicinal herbs they create. But now the medicinal herbs are grown, they're wonderful herbs, but they're grown in polluted land.
Okay.
So about 30 years ago, there was a study by the California Department of Health. They went to Chinese herb shops in San Francisco and picked up 300 different patent herbal formula. And they studied them with a spectrographic analysis. And I did the same thing myself personally here in Florida. And the spectrographic analysis showed that 60% of the herbal formula were severely contaminated with heavy metals or drugs or different things.
Really?
Which is a really shocking statement. So the US FDA sets a limit of about, I think, 4 parts per billion of lead in the food.
Okay.
Some of these Chinese herbal products had like 30% lead.
Wow.
Or it was insane. It's not 30%. 3%, but
sure.
It's like 30,000 parts per billion, which is an insane number.
Yeah.
Or, some of the herbs would be like 40,000 parts per million of arsenic. Crazy numbers, insane numbers that create kidney disease and heart disease and all sorts of things. So when you buy Chinese herbal products, you have to make sure that the source is pure and that they're tested. But food quality is important. There are a lot of toxins in food.
Okay.
A lot of the colorings aren't so good. A lot of the flavorings to be avoided. It's good to have more organic food. What you didn't mention there is that I was an organic farmer in Saskatchewan.
Oh, you
So I
were?
really got a feel for that.
Okay, so you have that in your background too.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, you brought up a good topic, and I remember hearing a quote or a statement that was made by somebody saying that much of the diseases that we have on this planet are caused by toxicity or deficiency.
Right.
And I was wondering if you could expand on, like, toxicity. Sometimes we don't think our thoughts could be toxic, right?
Well, that's very true.
Yeah. So what would you
But
say?
Before I get into that, I'm going to give a little brief summary. So the 7 pillars of health are food, air quality, water quality, light, the type of light you're exposed to, and that includes the whole electromagnetic field. Exercise, vitamin E is exercise. It's very important, very neglected. Rest, people forget about rest is a very essential part of health. And also, and probably most important, is peace of mind. So food, air, water, light, exercise, rest, and peace of mind. That's the foundation of health. Get those things squared away, you're fine.
If you're watching this, write that down. You need to back up the video because that's actually the first time I've heard all of those together.
It covers everything.
Yeah.
Basically. As far as toxicity, my brother-in-law, Dr. James Martin, wrote a book called How Toxic Are You?
Okay.
He sold tens of thousands of copies of that book. It's on Amazon. And he looks at the whole spectrum of foods available in the United States and the toxicities involved in them and how you have to be really careful about what you eat. And I studied with Michio Kushi, who was a disciple of George Osawa, developed the whole macrobiotic movement. And people are always pestering him about what foods they should eat. And he, again, would say, you have to eat to your purpose, whatever your purpose is. You have to eat to your purpose. And you can eat toxic food and transmute it with your state of mind if your purpose is strong enough.
If your purpose is strong enough.
No. But it's better to avoid toxic.
It's better to, yeah.
And it's not just the food that's toxic. The water quality is very important. People are very concerned about heart health. There's a book came out about 40 years ago called, what is it called? Cholesterol, Heart Health, and You. I think that's the name of it. And they did a study with chickens. They fed chickens water that was preserved or decontaminated with chlorine. And they fed chickens water that didn't have any chlorine in it. And then they autopsied the chickens. They found out their cardiovascular system was severely ridden with plaque and scarring if they were drinking chlorinated water.
Really?
So right now we think that cholesterol is the main cause of heart disease. I don't think so. I think the main cause of heart disease is water quality. So you want to get the chlorine out of your water. Now, it's very important to have chlorine in your water to get rid of all the bacteria and stuff that shouldn't be there. But when it gets to the tap, then you have to filter it to just take the chlorine out. If you don't take the chlorine out, you're really exposing yourself to a very bad toxin.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Most people don't.
Yeah.
It's a simple fix. It costs maybe $30. And also from your shower, you can get a $30 water filter that takes all the chlorine and other heavy metals out of your water.
So you would say even in the shower it's important?
Oh, yeah, because you're breathing that stuff in.
You're breathing it. Okay.
So food, water, air quality is important. We live in Sarasota.
Yeah.
Very wealthy community. Ridiculously wealthy community.
Yeah.
But not fully wealthy because 5%, where there's 5,000 in Sarasota in one neighborhood called Newtown, 31% of those people live below the poverty line, which is, I think, inexcusable, but that's another story.
Sure.
But the wealthy people in Sarasota are living in high rises, a lot of them along Route 41 and these thoroughfares. When you have 30,000 cars going by your house a day, the rubber from those cars flakes off.
Yeah.
you know how tires wear out?
Oh yeah.
Well, the rubber goes somewhere.
Hmm.
It gets broken down into little particles, and those little particles rise up in the air.
Mm.
So you're breathing carbonized tire particles.
I didn't know
That's
that.
bad for your lungs. So it's important to have good air quality. And if you're a multimillionaire, living in a multi-million-dollar condo, should damn well have a good air filter to filter your air.
Okay.
So,
Well, you brought up two
and,
good points:
yeah,
water filter and air
yeah.
filter.
And you can put an air filter to get rid of virus and bacteria by putting an ultraviolet light in your
Hmm.
air conditioning system. Works very well.
Oh, really? Okay.
So food, air, water, electromagnetic fields, light.
Hmm.
So we have a light on us right now, and we're in a building. There's electrical wiring all around us. Well, there's the natural electromagnetic pulse of the Earth. So the Earth has a charge. The edge of the atmosphere has a charge,
Hmm.
negative and positive, and there's a discharge going between the two. So there's a wave bouncing back, and all the animals and all the plants
Hmm.
on the planet are affected by this electromagnetic pulse, which is between 7.5 and 8 cycles per second, mostly like
Hmm.
7.8 cycles per second. It's called the Schumann wave.
Hmm.
So we're tuned to that. Our organs are tuned to that, and vibrating at different frequencies resonant with that natural frequency. So when you're breathing, if you breathe at a 6 cycle per second rate, like you take 10 breaths,
Hmm.
no, you take 6 breaths in a minute.
Yeah.
5 seconds in, 5 seconds out, 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out. You're basically taking 6 breaths a minute. So your hertz is, or 10 breaths a minute. So your hertz is like 6 hertz. It's a very healthy frequency.
Very healthy. Okay.
But when you're living next to a television or a 60 cycle per second electrical field, 60 seconds, 60 hertz,
Hmm.
60 cycles per second is not a healthy frequency.
Okay.
So if we're sleeping next to that, it's
Mm.
disturbing our sleep pattern and it's affecting our rest. So that has a big impact. And when you have a cell phone next to your head, you're cooking your brain.
Really?
It's not a good thing.
Yeah.
So you don't want to be on the phone that much. You don't want it right next to your head that much. You want to be careful not to be exposed to too much electromagnetic frequency.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to say something that won't make many doctors happy.
Yeah.
But one of the biggest threats to health, I think, is too much medical radiation.
Mm.
I've written a book called X-Rayed to Death. Dr. John Goffman was a nuclear physicist in charge of the Lawrence Livermore laboratories in the 1940s. World War II was going on. He started building the atomic bomb.
Hmm.
Oppenheimer needed
Hmm.
some help with that. So they called on Dr. Goffman, who was a specialist in nuclear physics, to figure out how to convert uranium-234 into uranium-235.
Hmm.
He figured out the process, so he got the patent on the process for making 234 into 235.
Mm.
They were down at Los Alamos labs in New Mexico making the bomb, and his immediate supervisor, who was the number 2 man to Oppenheimer, said, "Goffman, why is it taking so long to make this bomb, to get
Mm.
this uranium in the right place?" He said, "Well, I got to build a train system, a delivery system to move it from one vat to the next so I don't, expose the workers to too much radiation."
Mm.
And his supervisor says, "Forget that. Put it on the end of a broomstick. You got to move this. We got to get this bomb done."
Mm.
So they did. They attached the uranium-234 to a broomstick, move over to the next vat where they can make uranium-235. And the 3 assistants that he had in his lab all died from cancer, from too much radiation exposure.
Mm.
So after they made the bomb, you know what happened there, Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And after the war, he says, "Geez, I got to do something else with my life.
Yeah.
I'd have to make a bigger contribution to humanity." So he went to medical school, became the top cardiologist of the first half of the 20th century. He discovered cholesterol.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And all this stuff we have about cholesterol now came from Dr. Goffman's work. He won the Calder Prize for the, maybe it wasn't the Calder Prize, he won a big prize for being the best cardiologist. And
Nice.
then in 1960, the US Congress got a proposal from the Atomic Energy Commission to build 1,000 nuclear power plants. And they said, well, to the head of the AAC, Atomic Energy Commission, well, great. How much money do you need to do this? And is this safe? And the head of the AAC said, well, we actually never really done any studies on the safety of nuclear radiation.
Yeah.
So, we'll tell you what, we'll give you $30 million to do a study to see if this is safe.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to build 1,000 nuclear power plants around the country. So the head of the AAC said, well, I'll get in touch with John Goffman because he was a nuclear physicist. Now he's one of the top doctors in the country, in the world, actually. So we'll get him to do the study. So Goffman got the $30 million. He had a whole staff of scientists researching the effect of ionizing radiation, which is the radiation given off by nuclear materials, on human health. And he wrote a bunch of books about this, did a lot of studies, testified in front of Congress in 1967. And he said, well, if you build these 1,000 power plants, it's going to be so much nuclear radiation released that it will damage the genetic structure of many human beings. So there's a light contamination. This radiation is light. And you're going to damage the genetic codes. And part of the genetic code for every individual, in the genetic code, there are apoptosis genes. There's part of the gene that tells the cells when to stop replicating. It's called apoptosis. And if you have a radioactive bullet piercing somebody, and it hits that part of the gene, and that cell no longer has an off switch, it'll keep on replicating. And uncontrolled cell growth is cancer. So you're going to get a huge explosion of cancers because of the radiation. So I advise that you not build 1,000 nuclear power plants.
Well, what about...
There was a congressman from Tennessee, Hollifield, who was head of the commission in the House of Representatives that was going to do the appropriation. He says, well, thank you very much, Dr. Goffman. We're not going to build these plants, but you'll never get another government grant from us ever, ever.
Yeah.
And that's it for you on government grants. But thank God they took his advice. Now, getting back to contamination of light, Dr. Goffman then did a study of all the professions in the country, all the populations in the country, and what their levels of cancer and heart disease were. And he found that there were 14 major disease categories. And when there were a large number of doctors, in 12 of those 14 categories, disease rates went much lower.
Yep.
Diabetes, asthma, emphysema, kidney disease, whatever. All those categories of disease benefited dramatically when there were doctors in the area, when they had access to medical care. But cancer rates and heart disease rates dramatically raised. Why? Because they had more medical imaging exposure.
Wow.
And the only population in the United States that had the obverse, the actual reverse experience, were Native American populations. Because the Native American populations have bupkis for healthcare. I spoke last year as a keynote speaker at the American Indian Physicians Association. All the Native American physicians come together once a year in Albuquerque, New Mexico for a conference. These are wonderful people. They care about their reservations. They care about the people. They do the best they can for them. But there are too few of them, and the Native American populations are terribly underserved. So they don't get much health care at all. Because they don't get much health care, you have the highest rates of death and disease from 12 out of the 14 disease categories. But when it comes to cancer and heart disease, they're much healthier than regular Americans because they don't get medical radiation.
Okay, that's an important point. And what you shared, I have two questions that I was wondering. So to our audience, if there's somebody out there that's like, well, I've been through, countless X-rays, and I guess the question would be like, what could that person do today if they've known they've had that in their past? They've had a lot of X-rays. Aside from trying to stay away from it going forward as much as possible, is there a detoxing or something that they can do today that might help?
It's not so much detoxing as rebuilding or repairing genomic stability. You want to repair the stability of the genes.
Okay.
So there are some food groups that are very good for that. First of all, vitamin B12 and folic acid are really helpful for this.
Is it? Okay.
They're very cheap and very easy to do. And there's a whole new class of enzymes called sirtuins, Sirtuin. Actually, there's 7 sirtuin enzymes, sirtuin 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And they're found in about 20 basic food groups, like olive oil is high in them, capers are high in them, walnuts are high in them, strawberries are high in them, arugula is high in them. And there are a lot of common foods, and you can Google sirtuin, Sirtuin,
Mm-hmm.
and find out what foods are richest in sirtuins. There's about 20 key foods, and incorporate them into your diet. It's a good thing.
Oh, nice.
So,
Yeah.
and almost nobody knows about sirtuins. They just came on the landscape about 5 years ago in the scientific world. But what sirtuins do is they repair defective genes.
Okay.
So it's a good way to go.
That's some good advice.
And my heart goes out to Native Americans. They've been so dispirited. They're wonderful, wonderful people. But they've been blessed because they haven't had enough medical care to have lower incidence of cancer and heart disease. Well, which I want to bring up one more point about light, radiation. So cigarettes are a proven cause of cancer.
Yeah.
Everybody knows cancer. You get cancer from cigarettes. Why do you get cancer from cigarettes? It's not the tar and it's not the nicotine. It's because plants selectively uptake certain minerals. Like tomato plants love potassium. They suck potassium out of the soil. So tomatoes and potatoes are very potassium rich. Tobacco plants selectively uptake the isotope polonium-230. It's a radioactive isotope.
Oh, really?
So tobacco plants have very high levels of radiation in their leaves. It sucks it up through the roots, goes through the stems, out into the branches, into the leaves. So when you harvest tobacco leaves, especially from certain areas, especially with certain type of fertilizer.
Okay.
And the fertilizer that is used for fertilizing tobacco crops is phosphate, which is rich in phosphorus, which is contaminated with polonium-230.
So here's a question, and I didn't know that. That's something new. I didn't know, and I'm sure many of our audience don't know that. Can you? And I don't smoke cigarettes, but my question is, because you have an organic farming background, could you take a tobacco plant or a strain of not a genetically modified one, but a natural strain of tobacco, and through organic farming, could you grow that plant, and would that produce a better tobacco for smoking purposes?
Yeah. But I don't know. You'd have to test you can do an analysis of the plant to find out if it has a lot of polonium-230 in it.
Okay. I didn't know that.
But no, it's grown commercially. It's not an organic farming process. The Native Americans weren't spreading phosphorus on their soil to grow their tobacco plants.
It's true.
And they weren't suffering from a lot of lung cancer.
So they had no problem with the tobacco they grew. Okay.
And this has been known since the 1960s.
Interesting.
But the U.S. military was really committed to defending our country with nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
Which is basically insane.
Yeah.
And the world is insane to have all these nuclear weapons. Nuclear weapons are a bad idea. I'm not happy about nuclear weapons. But because we were committed to developing nuclear weapons, the military-industrial complex suppressed information about the dangers of radiation. So one of the first scientists who really focused on the dangers of nuclear radiation was Wilhelm Reich. And Reich did an experiment. He did experiments with life energy. And by the way, we'll talk about life energy in a little while.
Yeah.
And he found that if you put, he found that life energy is accumulated and concentrated in organic matter. But it's attracted to and then repelled by inorganic matter. So if you made a box that had organic matter on the outside, and then a layer of inorganic matter, then a layer of organic matter, then inorganic matter, it's going to concentrate this life energy into the center of the box. So you get in the center of the box, which he called the orgone box, you had a lot of life energy. And you can take this energy and direct it to heal people with it.
Interesting.
Because a lot of people don't have enough life energy. And he created an instrument called the Life Energy Meter. That's what this is. The experimental Life Energy Meter. It costs about $435.
Mm-hmm.
And you can turn it on, and you can touch the blue thing here.
You want me to touch
And
it?
well, you actually don't have to touch it, but it'll feel your energy field. So it's going
Yeah.
up from, I gotta calibrate it. There, at 50. So if I go close to it, it's going to feel my energy field. If I touch it, now I'm up at 100.
At 100, wow.
You can touch it, Ron.
There's
Yeah,
I'm at 100.
you're
Wow.
100. We've gained energy in the course of
our conversation.
But so he did this testing, and it's
Yeah.
very helpful. And he found that if you took a radioactive isotope of radium
Mhm.
and put it in the orgone box, it created what's called deadly orgone, or deadly energy, and it will still the flow of life energy for like 2 miles around.
Really?
So he wound up getting a heart attack from this. All the birds left the area. All the wildlife left the area. It had a very. This was at his experimental station in Rangeley, Maine, and he realized, well, radiation is not good for people.
Yeah.
It's not healthy.
Yeah.
So the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, accused him of selling, which he didn't do, selling a false instrument with false claims. And he never sold one of these units. He just did the research.
Yeah.
And for the first time in American history, he was the only author who had every one of his books collected and burned.
Really?
In the 1950s, mid-1950s. And he was put into prison in Lewisburg, Maine, and died in prison.
They wanted to hide his research.
They wanted to hide his research because we were trying to develop nuclear energy.
Yeah.
For nuclear power plants, but also for the nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
And in the 1960s in Worcester, Massachusetts, my hometown, at the University of Massachusetts in Worcester, they discovered that cigarettes were killing people because they were high in radiation. That got all covered up because it was a threat to the nuclear industry.
Interesting.
So
wow. So that's something I didn't know. I'm sure a lot of people didn't know. And
this is not conspiracy theory. This is fact.
It's facts.
The reason I became aware of Wilhelm Reich is in 1972. I was living under. I lived in an apartment in Boston, and above me in the apartment was a PhD candidate from Harvard University. And I said, the only place in the world, there's 2 copies of Wilhelm Reich's books in the Library of Congress, which you can't get access to, and at the Harvard Rare Book Library, Widener Library in Harvard. Mm-hmm. And you've got a pass to study any book in the Harvard Library. Could I borrow your pass to go into the Harvard Library and get Dr. Reich's books? Mm-hmm. So he said, yeah, sure. So you could photocopy anything in the Harvard Library without being charged. So I went in and I photocopied a dozen of his books that he wrote. And then I spent years reading them. So I was one of the only people in the country who had access to his books. But now they're all available, once again.
Well, you bring up a good point. There's a lot of information that is available. I think, though, the general person out there is still unaware because the advice that they're receiving is from an industry that is probably more for profit than for the health and well-being of people. And so
very astute.
They may have Freedom of Information Act may have caused some of this stuff to get out there, but it's just dormantly sitting on websites out there. Unless you've got, and you also mentioned the fact it's not a conspiracy. A lot of times, I think people that get labeled, even people I used to label as conspiracy theorists, later you find out, well, the information is out there, and there is some validity to it. It's just that the mass consciousness of humanity isn't aware of it because they're not plugged into it or not studying or seeking this information.
Politics.
Yeah.
I'm going to go into something that's going to help people heal themselves. And I had a bunch of friends come back from Vietnam telling me about how in Vietnam, the Vietnamese soldiers were using acupuncture and herbs to treat themselves if they got injured. So I meditated about this a lot. I said, well, what the hell is this acupuncture and Oriental herbs? How do you do this? What's the deal? And I was into meditating at the time. I still am. And I climbed Mount Toby, north of Amherst, Massachusetts, with a little pup tent I had. And I just sat down. I said, okay, I want to see God. I want guidance for my life. And be careful what you wish for. Because sitting on the top of this mountain, that day, God decided to have a thunderstorm.
Okay.
I was also reading the Tibetan Book of the Dead that day, talking about the clear light, which the Tibetans call the Buddha Amitabha. And for 8 hours, there was a tremendous thunderstorm all around me. These bolts of lightning were crashing like 50, 100 feet away from me. I could smell the ozone in the air, and it was a very terrifying thing in a way. But I said, well, I can be terrified by this, or I can just go with it and be with it, because there's no way I can run off this mountaintop for safety without pissing God off.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to surrender and just trust that it's going to all work out. And after 8 hours, I had crawled into my pup tent and slept through the rest of the storm. I woke up in the morning and I saw that I was in a field of wild blueberries. The storm was over, but I was left thinking, well, I wanted to see God. I saw this tremendous energy. What is this energy that we're talking about? And then I went to Boston. I went to a bookstore, the Red Wing bookstore. They had all these books about natural healing, acupuncture and stuff, and what the Chinese called Qi, the Japanese called Ki, the Indians called Prana, the American Indians called the Great Spirit. And I started understanding there's this life energy in the planet. And you can access that and you can use it to treat yourself and to heal yourself. And then I became quickly aware of Willem Reich being the scientist who really explored life energy. And I got into that. Which brings up three other things. Exercise.
Yeah. Well, before you go on exercise, I have one other question about.
Sure. Sorry.
So you talked about the cell phone not having it near the head, right? What about the Wi-Fi? Like in our houses, we all have these things called a modem or whatever you call it, this device, and there's this invisible, I'm assuming radiation also, some sort of electromagnetic field.
Right.
How and I shut mine off at night because I read something about, not to have that running while you're sleeping, and so I do shut mine off at night, and I also put my cell phone away from me so I don't sleep near that. What are your thoughts about what would be a good habit to do? Because we're relying on this in one sense, but how do we mindfully?
Well, it's better not to have electrical devices around your bed.
Yeah.
Have an energy-free field 4 feet away from your bed.
Okay.
So not have a clock radio, not have a cell phone, not have anything that's emitting electrical vibrations near your bed.
Okay.
But the Wi-Fi is like house-wide.
Yeah.
So you're not avoiding that.
Yeah.
And it's probably wiser to turn that off. And I'm too lazy to do that myself. I have everything else turned off, but I don't have the Wi-Fi turned off. But that's a smart thing to do.
Yeah. My cat sometimes unplugs it for some reason. I don't know why. I got a smart cat.
You do. Okay. Going back to exercise. Exercise is really the best vitamin E. The vitamin exercise. People need more exercise. You have to be active.
Yeah.
You have to walk. You have to swim. You have to climb mountains. You have to do chopping wood. You have to wash your dishes by hand. You have to do things to be active.
Yeah.
And because in the process you're breathing, because the life energy comes from three main sources. It comes from the food you're eating, the water you're drinking, and the air. The air has oxygen in it. Oxygen is really, so central to life. So you need exercise, but you also need rest. So a lot of people exercise, but they don't get proper rest because they're not sleeping in an energy-safe zone. They're watching TV till the minute they go to bed. They have a TV in the bedroom. Or they're just not sleeping enough. They're working too much. They're sleeping 5 hours a night. You can't do that for a lifetime. You need 7 or 8 hours of sleep.
The American lifestyle has been, even up until COVID and even with, I would say, virtual jobs today, we kind of have to think to plan or have a habit of exercise.
Yeah.
Because I find myself sometimes at the end of the day, I'm sitting in the same chair. and I've been there for a while.
Yeah.
So you bring up a good point, is to have exercise or a routine to get out from where you are and stretch and move and breathe.
It's such a key to health.
Yeah.
In all the blue zones in the world where people live to be over 100, one of the main things they do is they exercise. They don't have very sedentary lives. They're walking up mountains, they're fishing, they're bending down while they're gardening, they're doing all sorts of things, but they exercise. And the older people I know who are still healthy, they exercise.
So leave the computer and cell phone at home and get out there and move.
Right.
That's a good point.
And you have to have rest too. You have to, I know so many people who are doing exercises where they're one-sided, like they're playing tennis,
Mm-hmm.
and they're playing tennis a lot, and then they get a bad elbow as a result.
Mm-hmm.
Then they come into the clinic, and you're treating the elbow with acupuncture, electrical stim, and different herbs and things, and then they go back out and they're playing tennis all the time again.
Yeah.
They hurt their elbow. Well, you got to change your lifestyle. You don't want to overexercise one part of the body versus the other part. You want to do things that are bilateral. Golf is a wonderful sport. It's great for me because golfers hurt themselves.
Yeah.
They come in for treatments, but everything in moderation. Great playing golf, but don't play golf 7 days a week.
Yeah.
You're going to bother yourself. Where you want to do an exercise that's good for both sides of your body. And you want to rest it. You don't want to over-exercise certain things. And you want to get enough sleep. Mm-hmm. Which leads us up to the seventh pillar, which is peace of mind. Because without peace of mind, everything else go to crap.
How can somebody listening today that maybe stressed, maybe they're been watching too much news, what advice would you give them to help them establish peace of mind?
Well, the key to peace of mind is knowing who you are. So Socrates says, the only thing that matters is know thyself. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean to be an egotist, but really know thyself with a big S, capital S-E-L-F. Mm-hmm. Because your true self is an immortal soul. Mm-hmm. A lie that people believe is that we're born and then we die. Mm-hmm. And that's it. Mm-hmm. That's not true. In fact, you can't look at anything holistically and see a beginning and end of anything. Mm-hmm. You take everything recycles. Everything is part of a great whole. There's no beginning and there's no end. Like we talk about the Big Bang Theory. My first Japanese teacher says, I asked him, what's at the edge of the end of the universe? He says, this is a Western concept. This is a sign of severe mental illness. To think that there was a beginning of life and an end to life.
That's how we're conditioned.
That's conditioned. That the universe began at this day and it's going to end at this day. That the universe started in this location and expanded to there, and that's the edge of the universe. That's all mental illness. It's not the way it is. The way it is, there was never a beginning, there's never an end, there's infinity. And time and space are both, and Einstein even agrees with this, time and space are subjective concepts that aren't really reflective of the true nature of reality. The true nature of reality, there's no time, there's no space, there's just the divine being that we're all a part of. We're not separate from this divine being. We're all part of one great holistic ocean of love that our little beingnesses are swimming around in happily and gleefully. So when you meditate, there's many types of meditation you can do. You can be meditating wide awake, walking, just the meditation can just be listening to the noises. Oh, I hear that buzz, I hear that buzz, I hear. You just spend 10 minutes listening to all the noises around you. Or seeing, okay, I see that painting over there, I see this desk over here, I see the floor there, I see the leaves over there, I see the sky. You're just present to wherever you're present. Mm-hmm. Or you're just closing your eyes and you're just meditating on a mantra. I do transcendental meditation is a mantra I listen to, and I try to let all the thoughts that are going through my mind just keep on flowing away, keep on flowing through, not holding on to them, not trying to fix this problem or that problem. But I do try when I'm meditating. And then I thought, forget that.
Yeah.
Let's not get caught up in the material world. No, let's just be in the present of the infinite sea of love. Just be there and just take a bath in that sea of love, 20 minutes, 40 minutes a day. And that puts everything else in perspective. And then you think, well, I don't really want to kill my neighbor because he's playing his radio too loud at night.
Yeah.
Or all the crazy things we think about.
Yeah.
Just come more from love. So peace of mind is really important.
Nicely
And
said.
it's easy to lose it.
Yeah.
I've had very, very, very close friends lose their lives to drug addiction. And because they were looking for something that they weren't going to find in that place or that way.
Mm-hmm.
There's a great philosopher, Eric Hoffer, who once said, you can never get enough of what you don't really want to be happy. And there were all these, he'd say, the soul will not accept substitutes. The soul wants the real thing.
Mm-hmm.
And Jesus came to earth to try to give people a sense of what the real thing was. And a lot of people said, wow, that really makes sense. And they listened to him. But then there were all these other things. The whole advertising world is predicated on the notion you're not good enough. You need this kind of car. You need this kind of eye makeup. You need this kind of breathalyzer. You have bad breath. And if you don't get rid of the bad breath, nobody's going to love you. So you're going to buy this product.
Mm-hmm.
So everything is about selling a product to be whole. That's all crap. You're okay just the way you are. God loves you. You're part of this divine experience. Just settle back and just be happy to just be. And you don't have to scurry around to try to make enough money to buy this or that. Of course, you need food, rent, shelter, clothing, but
yeah,
you don't need all this other crap that people are telling you absolutely have to be okay.
You're right. We're conditioned to believe. Well, I think a lot of us are caught up in this whole celebrityism thing, where we're looking to outside of ourselves to what we believe is what would make us happy. And as a reverse of where happiness really comes from is the inner beingness. So you brought up a good point, because obviously sometimes we've got to go through that in our own life to realize. I like Tony Hsieh, who was the founder of Zappos, and they interviewed him, and he was in his tiny little house, and I think the person interviewing him said, well, you're a multimillionaire, why are you living here? And his comment was, I don't live for things, I live for experiences. And what you just shared, Dr. Harvey, about the beingness, that the nature of being self-aware, I think it comes down to that, becoming detached to those things that maybe we were programmed or brought up to believe is what we need to have.
Yeah.
And yeah, peace of mind is a big one. Peace of mind is a big one for people too.
But I think everybody, when they really set themselves down and just mellow out and experience what they really know about themselves, they know that this isn't going to make them happy. They know that's not going to make them happy. They can simplify their life and know what they really want is love. Everybody just wants love. They want to love and they want to be loved.
Nice.
And,
beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, anything else? Did we hit on all 7 pillars?
Yeah, you can go deeper into each one, but.
And can you repeat those again, just so people know what the 7 pillars are?
Food, and they're not in any particular order of importance, though I think peace of mind is ultimately the most important. But food quality, air quality, water quality, light quality, and light means electromagnetic field.
Mm-hmm.
Exercise, rest, and peace of mind.
Nice. And you started us off with having a sense of purpose.
Having a sense of purpose. Well, that goes with peace of mind.
That goes with peace of mind.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, that is perfect. And is there any last comments, or how do people find out about you or some of your books that you have?
Yeah. I teach continuing education courses to the acupuncture profession. I've got a website, hkacup.com. And anybody can go to the website. I've got 27 courses up there. You can read all of them for free. You only have to pay if you want to get a continuing education certificate submitted to the state or national agency, which is nobody in this audience, basically. So you can read all the courses for free, download them all, and learn a lot about different aspects of health. Or you can go to Amazon, type in my name, Harvey Kaltsas, Kaltsas, and I've got, I think, 5 books on Amazon for sale. And,
Nice. Beautiful. Well, thank you, Dr. Harvey,
My
for
pleasure,
taking the
Alan.
time for today.
Thank you very much.
And I will we'll look forward to having another interview in the future.
There's a lot of things we can talk about.
All right.
Everything.
Thank you
Okay.
all.
Take care.
Take care.